There is an old story about a day when the devil decided to hold a sale. For thousands of years, he had collected tools capable of weakening the human spirit, destroying relationships, and turning people away from the lives they were meant to live. Now, for reasons no one understood, he had decided to place those tools on display and offer them to the highest bidder. The doors opened early that morning, and curious visitors came from everywhere. Spread across long tables were the devil's most infamous possessions. There was the dagger of jealousy, polished until its blade shone beneath the light. Beside it rested the hammer of anger, heavy enough to crush friendships, marriages, and families with a single blow. There was the rope of hatred, twisted from years of bitterness, the mask of dishonesty, the poison of envy, and the sharpened blade of fear. Each tool carried an enormous price. People crowded around them, fascinated by the destruction each one had caused. But in the farthest corner of the room stood a small pedestal. Upon it rested an object that seemed strangely ordinary. It was an old iron wedge. Its surface was scratched, its edges were worn. It looked as though it had been used countless times. Unlike the other tools, it was not polished or beautiful. But the price attached to it was greater than the price of every other object in the room combined. A visitor stared at it for several moments. Then he turned to the devil. "Why does this old wedge cost so much?" The devil smiled. "That is the most valuable tool I possess." The visitor looked again at the battered piece of iron. "What does it do?" The devil stepped closer. "That is the wedge of discouragement. I use it when all my other tools have failed. When I cannot defeat someone with fear, when jealousy cannot distract them, when anger cannot control them, and when temptation cannot pull them away from their purpose. I search for the smallest opening in their mind. A disappointment, a rejection, a mistake, a prayer that appears to have gone unanswered, a dream that is taking longer than expected. And into that tiny opening, I place the narrow edge of this wedge. At first, they barely notice it. It begins with a single thought. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I started too late. Maybe nothing will ever change. Maybe I should stop trying." Then I tap the wedge a little deeper, and soon they begin doing the work for me. They remember every failure. They compare themselves with everyone around them. They question their abilities. They doubt their purpose. And eventually they drive the wedge so deeply into their own minds that it splits their hope in two. The visitor studied the wedge with growing uneasiness. But why is discouragement more valuable than fear, anger, or hatred? Because those emotions often cause people to act, the devil replied. Fear may make someone run. Anger may make someone fight. Jealousy may make someone compete. But discouragement makes them sit down. It convinces them that action is useless. It persuades them to abandon their dreams without anyone having to take those dreams away. And once a person stops believing that tomorrow can be better than today, I no longer need to defeat them. They defeat themselves. The visitor reached toward the price tag. Then someone must buy it and destroy it. But the devil quickly removed the wedge from the pedestal. "No," he said, "the other tools are for sale. This one is not." And perhaps that is why discouragement visits every meaningful journey. It appears when the road becomes difficult, when the results come slowly, when the door remains closed, when your efforts seem unnoticed. It whispers that your struggle is proof you should quit. But struggle is not always a sign that you are moving in the wrong direction. Sometimes it is evidence that you are attempting something worthwhile. Discouragement survives by keeping you still. So its enemy is action. One phone call, one prayer, one conversation, one application, one page written, one more attempt. You do not have to see the entire road. You only have to take the next step. Because every time you rise after disappointment, every time you continue after rejection, every time you act while discouragement tells you to surrender, you loosen the devil's wedge. Discouragement may knock on your door. It may whisper into your thoughts. It may even convince you to sit down for a while. But it cannot decide whether you remain there. That decision still belongs to you. Stand up, take the next step, and never allow the devil's most valuable tool to become the reason you abandon the life you were created to live.